Well, hello there everyone, and welcome to another commentary. Y'all remember Mr. Ender? Remember, when he dropped a hot take on the latest Pixar movie Turning Red, saying that it should show depictions or some acknowledgement of 9/11, since it takes place in the early 2000s? Remember how this take went viral, and it became the talk of the town to the point where news publications had to come in and write articles about it? Remember all the memes that were spawned from it?
Turn on the TV, they hit the Pentagon! They hit the fucking Pentagon!
Ha ha ha. Good one guys. God, I feel like such a boomer. I've watched and knew about Mr. Ender since 2014, and throughout my years of acknowledging his existence, the amount of infamy he has received from that take alone is unprecedented compared to everything else he was hated in for. Back in 2016, everyone, specifically from my community, knew him as this angry person who takes cartoons way too seriously and hates the new SpongeBob episodes. Now everyone knows him as the Turning Red 9/11 guy. If you asked anyone why Mr. Ender was such a controversial figure during that time, they will tell you that he takes cartoons too seriously, thinks that trolling and cyberbullying are the same thing, had a fanbase mainly comprising of militant lemmings, etc. Now, if you asked anyone why Mr. Ender is infamous in 2022, they'll more than likely say, hey, isn't that the Turning Red 9/11 guy? Because of Mr. Ender's Turning Red 9/11 take and how viral it became, all of those things I've mentioned above have been superseded by this take alone. He will forever be known as the Turning Red 9/11 guy. It's honestly pretty mind-blowing to be honest. However, I'm not commentating on his Turning Red review yet. We are actually going to be commentating on an interesting individual called ThatAnimeSnob, who also made a video reviewing the same movie. While Mr. Ender is calling this movie out for not acknowledging a national tragedy, ThatAnimeSnob is calling this movie out for an entirely different reason, and you're going to piss yourself once you find out later on in the video by whichever means. For the sake of this commentary, I watched the movie on Disney+, and to anyone who wants to hear my opinion on the movie, I thought that it was a great movie, and it's definitely a breath of fresh air for Pixar in terms of its storytelling and animation. But anyway, let's see what he had to say.
Pixar used to be the best studio when it came to animated movies in the West.
Alright, let me address the elephant in the room for a minute. This is the worst fucking thumbnail I have ever seen in my life. I know I may be throwing stones from a glass house, but holy shit dude, you can't make this shit up, if you tried. Where the hell do I even begin with this? First, aside from how poorly made this whole thumbnail is in general, we are going to address the fact that you've cropped the head of May, the main character, and overlaid it on top of a woman bending over showing her ass. Why? And as if it wasn't bad enough in itself, you acknowledge that she's fucking 13 years old. There is a picture that says she is 13, and then you have Tino Bear standing there gazing at said 13-year-old. You had to think this over. You had all the time to think to yourself whether or not it would be a good idea to sexualize a 13-year-old in this way, and this is the result.
Then it became modern and got ruined like everything else on the planet. Its movies used to be a big deal when they were coming out, but now almost nobody cares anymore. Turning Red came out and it got instantly forgotten.
Are you sure about that?
Don't know about you chum, but in my personal anecdote, there have been many people talking about the movie. And when I say talk about it, I mean deliver some of the worst fucking takes I have ever seen in my life. Turning Red? Turning Red seems to have pushed all of the right buttons for these unhinged lunatics and people with skeletons in their closets to come out of the woodworks and deliver us some classics. My anecdote is 1,000 times better than your anecdote.
The only thing people heard about it was the drama it caused when the Twitter mob attacked a reviewer for saying the movie was not for him.
Yes, that's the only thing people heard about the movie. I mean, it couldn't possibly be because of the movie itself, or the fact it was made by Pixar, or the certain messages it possesses. Oh no, we can just discard all of that, because apparently the only time people heard about it revolves around some dipshit making a terrible review in it on Twitter, and there is literally no other instances where anyone heard about the movie. Seems legit.
And it truly wasn't, so once again the Twitter mob was being a bunch of idiotic fascists.
Twitter mob? Damn ThatAnimeSnob, I thought you said nobody even cared about the movie. Why is there an angry mob of Twitter users defending Turning Red, if no one cared about it?
It is not a mainstream movie like the ones Pixar was making back in its glorious days when people cared. It's aimed at immature teenage girls, proven by the first 15 minutes of complete cringe.
Bro. Cringe. Cringe, cringy, cringe, crinkle, cringest, cringe to have ever cringed.
Seeing a stupid girl pretending to be super amazing and a woman at the age of 13.
Yeah, that's the joke. They are 13, they are not women yet. Get it? Like Lime Touch said, it's a meaningless throwaway joke.
You're taking some meaningless throwaway joke.
Why are you acting like a spoiled brat that infodumps the whole premise of the show by breaking the fourth wall was too much for any adult to tolerate?
Why are they acting like a spoiled brat that infodumps the premise of the show by breaking the fourth wall, whilst too much for any adult to tolerate? Huh? What the fuck does that even mean? That made absolutely no sense.
Not even males are gonna like it since all the major characters are sassy women.
Did you just call these 14-year-olds sexy women? Oh wait, you said sassy women. Hope that wasn't a Freudian slip.
And the few men we see in the background are all useless, bored and passive doormats we are meant to ignore. Women don't need men, they are amazing the way they are.
And now we gotta throw in the sexism, real nice. That seems a bit too 1950-ish for me, chum. We live in the 21st century, go harder. Alright, I recently smoked out of a marijuana bong, so expect me to make a bunch of comments from me being high.
Also, if you got sick and tired of the Cal Arts style...
Oh great, here comes this really retarded Cal Arts complaint, especially with the movie. Alright everyone, let me fill you in on something. The 2D version of Cal Arts are not the same as the 3D that Turning Red supposedly possesses. Most of the prime examples and archetypes are all from 2D cartoons, such as Gumball, Steven Universe and Star vs. the Forces of Evil, etc. You know, 2D cartoons with a mean mouth. This Cal Arts art style can only truly fit well should it be on 2D cartoons, but not 3D. Not to mention, these Cal Arts cartoons are not synonymous because of the notorious mean mouth. They all have something else, which are big eyes. Compare this with Turning Red, and you can see how they are not similar. May has smaller eyes. Not to mention, notice we're saying May here. That's only one character. You're literally taking one character design out of 1,000 other characters in this movie. There are plenty of characters in the movie that don't possess a notorious mean mouth.
Here is more of it so you can continue to hate it. The only other people besides immature teenage girls who are not gonna have an issue with it are the pedos because its themes are naughty as hell.
Woo boy, here comes the fun part of this commentary, and the main reason why I wanted to do this commentary. Well actually the stupid fucking thumbnail was the first reason why I wanted to do the commentary. Dude, you're the only one placing May's head in a sexy woman. I wouldn't be insinuating that this may appeal to pedophiles. But let's see you're correct. Let's say this movie is going to end up appealing to pedophiles. This wouldn't be anything new. Pedophiles will just masturbate to everything and anything that even has children in them. There's literally no exception. You name anything, whether it be cartoons or anime that has a child in it, or better yet, have the main characters be children, and you'll expect pedophiles that will just fulfill their sick fantasies in any way. The only real way we can address it at all is through some sort of harm reduction. Tackle movies such as Cuties, where they are explicitly sexualizing minors. Turning Red, in the other hand, is not even sexualizing children in this way. I mean sure you may have a few pedophiles that will just fucking masturbate to anything that has a child in it, but that minority is completely irrelevant when knowing who their main demographic is. Cuties on the other hand, does sexualize children, far more often than not than what non-pedophile material should. It's almost like they are appealing to pedophiles in and of itself. Yeah, they are not the fucking same my guy.
The heroine is acting like a woman at the age of 13. She turns into a hairy animal for attracting the sick furries.
Oh what's that? May turns into a red panda. Quick, let's immediately shoehorn a Freud joke for no fucking reason at all. God, it's like you're actively trying to find something sexual in this movie. No one else is making claims like the ones you're making. We went from red panda to Freud porn. If you're immediately coming to this conclusion, then that's on you my guy. It's not Pixar's fault that you got aroused by the red panda.
And the whole thing is a metaphor for puberty, which is not handled in a serious way. The whole thing is basically another Cuties, you know, that abomination.
Are you fucking serious? I was joking when I was using Cuties as an example. I didn't actually expect you to go off the deep end to actually unironically compare this movie to Cuties. Cuties, a movie that explicitly sexualizes children, have children dress in scantily clad clothing to twerk in front of the camera. This movie is the very definition of pedophile bait. So ThatAnimeSnob, where in the movie did May and her old dress in scantily clad clothing to shake their fat asses in front of the camera? I mean, I personally don't remember any of that, but I do see that you have an absolutely repugnant Photoshop of May bending over revealing her ass cheeks, so clearly you must know a thing or two about where the fuck in the movie did they sexualize children, or twerk their asses, or show their vaginas talking to them. Exactly, none, absolutely none whatsoever. Nowhere in this PG-rated family movie did they show anything comparable to what Cuties had. Maybe I'm not enough of a pedophile to see what you're talking about.
That was supposed to be about the problems young girls are facing, and ended up being pedobait that everybody hates now?
You're the only fucking person I know on this website that seriously believes that Turning Red is pedobait. No one else, except you, would even consider making such a hot take if they didn't have something in their past.
Turning Red is like that, and if you don't hear anyone making a fuss about it, it's because nobody gives a shit about Pixar anymore.
Well, I have an alternative explanation. The reason you don't hear people making a fuss about Turning Red being a pedophile movie is not that no one gives a fuck about Pixar anymore. In fact, Pixar movies have been churning out lots of success. If the recent history of animation wasn't enough of an indicator, No, the reason people aren't talking about it is because it's not fucking bait. No sane person who isn't subconsciously obsessed with children would ever consider that thought. The only people who would do that would be people like you, people who more than likely have skeletons in their closets.
Plus, the theme is animated and implied, so it's perfectly safe to be presented to teenage girls.
Yes, Pixar is going to have children twerk in front of the camera, while spreading their assholes and show their feminine cocks and then market it to teenage girls. Yeah, sure, that's definitely what's happening.
It's not going to give them bad moral messages or something.
What fucking bad messages are you talking about? All I got from the movie is that you need to embrace and be your fullest self rather than running away from it, and a lesson to parents in giving your kids some space and let them be more independent and grow on their own. It's basically a Jungian movie, if you learn anything from psychology. Not sure where you get the message that you must dress up as a furry and shake your ass in front of everyone to entice pedophiles. We went from be yourself to let's strip naked and lap dance in front of older men. Not sure how we got there. Maybe I'm not constantly fixated in pedophilic material.
Since it's a cartoon and cartoons are for kids, therefore they don't affect them and adults don't have to take them seriously.
Right, because normal parents wouldn't see this as a manifesto of pedophilic urges, nor would they call the red panda masturbation material for furries. Because believe it or not everyone is constantly fixated over sex and cum and masturbation, and they are not going to see this as even remotely in the same camp such as these.
So in this completely safe cartoon that does not give bad messages to teenage girls, the heroine becomes a monster because of a curse. She tries to hide it because she doesn't want to be hated, only to find out they don't hate it. They love her fairy transformation, they want to touch her, play with her, ride her, and even take photos of her. And then she abuses the curse by demanding to be given money, so she will continue to do such things with them.
Right, she's using her red panda transformation to accumulate money so they can buy enough tickets to go to a concert with her friends. She's doing it for a purpose, and you know this to be true. What you're doing right now is pretending like she's doing it to maliciously bribe other children for her own personal gain.
Now let me ask you, if the monster symbolizes puberty, and she is a 13-year-old who is paid by other children so they can play with her monster form, what message are you getting out of this?
I don't know, people being entertained by the red panda. What I am getting out of this is that this has nothing to do with the main message of the movie. For anyone who's actually seen the movie, when it came out, the message of the movie is fundamentally about embracing your authentic self, as well as improving familial relationships and straying away from toxicity. The whole thing about the red panda being an allegory for adolescence and puberty is simply one aspect of a much broader point the movie was trying to convey.
Is she playing doctor? Is she taking photos of her boobs and posts them on Instagram? Is she flashing her pubes in front of everyone?
Jesus, this shit is just too funny, man. I can't do this. Just the way he says it is extremely funny. No ThatAnimeSnob, that's not what she's doing.
And she does it all for money at the age of 13? Because that's what I got.
Well, no shit, there's your problem, Poindexter. You of all people got that message from the movie. No one else got it, only you. You're deliberately finding whatever aspect of the movie that you can use to make it look like it's some bait fetish movie, and getting mad at Pixar for supposedly having those things, when in reality, everything that you just said is all a product of your imagination.
Now add to all that how she needs that money so she and her friends can go to a boy band concert where, as they claim, they will all become women by interacting with the singers. Can you translate what that means? Because to me it sounds like a bunch of underage groupies wanna have an orgy with famous people.
Jesus fucking Christ. This guy can't get his mind off of sex when analyzing this movie. He just cannot do it, can he? May turns into a red panda when having strong emotions. Sex. May uses her newfound powers to accumulate money. Sex. May and her gang goes to a boy band that they enjoy to quote, become women. Sex. Seriously, what the actual fuck? We're talking about a movie whose main characters are like 13 years old, and you keep bringing up something sexual about it at every given turn. Why? The only thing that is remotely sexual about this movie is the side plot revolving going through adolescence and puberty, and something about having a period. That's all. Oh no, a girl going through puberty presented in media? Unacceptable. Quick, let's be super weird about it for 8 minutes. If all you can take from a simple side plot about going through puberty, as experienced by the creator of the movie, is that it's bait, that only says about you more than the underlying implications of turning red. I know I keep saying this a lot throughout this commentary, but holy shit dude, it's practically a truism at this point.
Like any story that has problematic topics, it can get a pass if it shows both sides of the spectrum without favoring one over the other.
Doesn't Pixar already do that? You know, if there's anything you need to know about how Pixar tells their stories in their movies, one thing to notice is that it's not told in the lens of a traditional heroes versus villains dichotomy that many other animated movies seem to rely on. If you take a look back at Pixar's catalog, many of their movies either didn't include the traditional trope of hero versus villain, or they made the villain inconsequential to the story being told to the point where they become a mere narrative tool. Ottomagic did a great video in the Black Friday reel of Toy Story, where he goes in depth about how Pixar's general understanding of not needing to rely on the heroes versus villains caricature has created some of the most inconsequentially complex characters. It's the same thing right here in Turning Red, and this will be important later on in this commentary.
If there are negative consequences to what she's doing, she gets punished for it and learns some important message at the end, such as it's not nice to whore herself at the age of 13 and to slip around with boys just because they are handsome and famous. Then it's all fine. You can have creepy themes if they are explored properly and are not presented as some sick power fantasy for pedos who are going to make it seem like there is nothing wrong with fucking children if they are getting paid for it. Well, guess what? That's exactly what it is.
No, it isn't. That's not what's happening in the movie, you fucking grimace. Nowhere in the movie did they ever suggest that it's okay to molest children for money, not even once. The only reason you're coming to this conclusion is that your dumbass can't talk about a story revolving around a teenage girl going through adolescence without being super weird about it. You keep latching onto the aspect about puberty, and you use this to make weirdly sexual statements about the characters of the movie, particularly May. It's not normal, it's actually pretty fucking weird.
The heroine doesn't listen to the warnings of her family, and she's never punished for it. Unless, of course, throwing the blame to her best friends and being scolded a bit for doing all that, plus almost shredding an innocent child to pieces, counts as punishment.
Exactly, that's the whole point of that scene. It's meant to illustrate that May's mother, is an overprotective helicopter parent who dilutes herself into believing that May is this perfect little angel. Her overprotective nature is what causes May to break up ties with what's most important to her, which are her friends. It's meant to illustrate that overprotective helicopter parenting are inherently destructive to the relationship between parents and their children, which, spoiler alert, is also meant to build up to the main message of the movie.
Her family does all they can to remove the curse. And by family I only mean the women, since the men are all useless idiots. Who needs men? That's another good moral message.
Okay, aside from the blatant misogyny in your so-called point, here's a problem that I noticed about your review. You keep trying to find the core message in the movie in all the wrong places. As I stated earlier in the video, the core message of the movie is that you should embrace your truest and authentic self, and have an environment that doesn't discourage or shuns it down. However, rather than trying to understand that, you instead take some small situation or sets of decisions that the characters make, and then treat it as if that's a core message of the movie. It's a stupid, unprofessional and bad faith way of analyzing movies, because not every decision the characters make has to be one of the core messages of the movie. If anything, that only steers away from it.
The heroine does not agree to remove the curse, since she loves being a fairy who gets paid for doing all those things with other children, even if she gets berserk and shreds them to pieces afterwards. She goes as far as running away from home without telling anyone about it, just for going to the concert she wasn't allowed to. Keep in mind how she no longer has the money to go there. We see her jumping on the rooftops with her monster powers, and landing in the stadium without having to pay a dime. If it was so simple, why did she need the money in the first place? Unless, of course, it's another symbolism for how nymphets like her don't need to pay for anything. She gives a few blowjobs and then gets favors as thanks.
What? Okay, so apparently, in the movie, May was just going around giving blowjobs to random strangers in the streets, while on her way to the concert. Ah yes, I remember that scene. I remember that part of the movie where May was running around in scantily clad clothing slurping on some juicy girthy cocks from muscular stallions willing to pay her, but remember she was a giant red panda at the time, which would mean May would have to tear the shit out of those purple-headed yogurt slingers in shreds while the men are just screaming in excruciating horror and pain in the process. Oh sure, ThatAnimeSnob, I can definitely see how that exists in the movie. This fucking guy dude. Not only does he interpret everything in the movie in a sexual light, but he has to deliberately make something up about the movie. This guy sat down, and while reviewing this part of the movie, he found out that there really isn't anything he can use to spin it into his sex-crazed predetermined narrative about this part of the movie, so he has to fucking lie about it. He sat down and he had to imagine that by himself. He must have. No one else, except him, had to make this part up. He sat down and imagined May giving blowjobs to random strangers.
What a great message for children!
Yeah kids, moral of the story, let's run around like retarded freaks and scantily clad and blow some nice cock. Oh geez, Pixar has gone too far this time. Now excuse me as I write a complaint to Disney while rubbing my crotch.
Anyways, when her mother finds out about it, she turns to a huge monster and goes to the stadium for taking her back. In the process, she causes mass destruction. She terrorizes thousands of people, and if the movie was realistic, she kills 1,000 more by the falling debris.
Can you imagine how stupid it would be if Turning Red was actually realistic?
Turn on the TV, they hit the Pentagon! They hit the fucking Pentagon!
All of a sudden, the mother is the bad guy, while the heroine is amazing.
Okay, from this point alone, I can tell that you have fundamentally misunderstood not only how Turning Red is written, but how Pixar movies are written in general. As I stated not too long ago, I stated that the dichotomy of the traditional heroes versus villains archetype is presented in an ambiguous light, or is practically non-existent. Pixar's writing team made sure that it's not viewed in the lens of a typical struggle between good and evil, and recognizes that both sides are recognized as humans with their own strengths and weaknesses, qualities and faults, etc. Pixar recognizes that there is more to developing a villain than just meeting some archetypical criteria of what a villain should be traditionally. They would usually have the villain of the movie be a narrative tool rather than the main obstacle, or have the villain not fit into the realm of villainy so it's to have them more down to earth. In all the other movies with the typical heroes versus villains journey, Jafar is an amoral psychopath, Scar wanted to kill Mufasa so he can become king, Lord Farquaad wants to marry Princess Fiona so he can become a legitimate ruler of Duloc, and Judge Claude Frollo wanted to burn Esmeralda for witchcraft, or keep her in her dungeon to do stuff with her for lack of a better term. All of these villains are easily identifiable as villains. They all have their own concise objectives that are mainly for their own personal gain, and there isn't any room for further looking into their character and depth that doesn't involve just plain evil intentions above all else. Contrast this with some of the movies in Pixar's catalog. The villains that do show up in a Pixar movie are not inherently evil. They have far more depth to them, and they are either inconsequential to the story being told, or the villains are simply not there at all. In the case of Turning Red, Ming isn't being painted by the writers as being some malevolent immoral witch who wants to harness May's red panda form for her own personal gain. She is just some helicopter parent who doesn't want her little Mayday to get into trouble. She's not the main obstacle that May has to overcome, but acceptance and understanding of yourself are the most important obstacle. Her existence, aside from her depth and character in themselves, merely serves as a narrative tool for a much broader message. While we've established that Pixar has a very peculiar way of subverting the heroes versus villains archetype, compared to the other antagonists that Pixar had in their movies, Ming has the least bad intentions of them all. Sid Phillips likes to blow up and reassemble his toys for his amusement. Randall wants to climb up the monster ranks by scaring and kidnapping children. Stinky Pete wants the Woody's Roundup gang to go to a museum in Japan. Charles Muntz wants to capture Kevin, because all the other people wouldn't believe him when he says this species of bird existed. Syndrome wanted to kill off real superheroes only for him to pretend to be one by fighting a giant robot that he created, and fucking Lotso turned Sunnyside into a prison for toys just so they can feel his pain that he faced when he was quote-unquote replaced by Daisy. Compared to all of those antagonists, Ming is the only antagonist of a Pixar movie who explicitly has good intentions, while others do not. And that's saying something, since none of these villains that I just mentioned are inherently evil like Jafar, Scar, or Lord Farquaad, where you can easily tell right off the bat that they are the villains. Instead, they are portrayed as normal people with flaws much like everyone else, and are simply misguided. If you're trying to suggest that Ming is supposed to be this malevolent bitch who wants to see May suffer, the creators would have broke the Pixar tradition and have her be inherently evil like Scar from The Lion King. But she's not like that at all, so not only is it a complete misunderstanding of Ming's character, but a complete misunderstanding of Pixar movies in general.
Because she uses her monster form to fly in the air and to not pay for anything.
She uses her monster form to fly in the air, and she doesn't need to pay for anything. How the fuck do those things correlate?
Then her whole family, and by that I only mean the women since men are useless idiots.
Alright, you keep peddling this really weird misogynistic idea that Turning Red is sexist against men, but I found something in the movie that completely contradicted this notion. While the women are overprotective towards May, it was her father Jin that gave away one of the most important messages of the movie.
People have all kinds of sides to them, May. And some sides are messy. The point isn't to push the bad stuff away, it's to make room for it. Live with it.
If your narrative that all the men in Turning Red are a bunch of useless idiots for us to laugh at, then this shouldn't exist in the movie.
Comes to stop the mother, not the heroine.
Yes, pay no attention to Ming turning into an absolutely gargantuan red panda the size of a fucking skyscraper that's causing millions of dollars of collateral damage. Oh no, instead let's stop May from going to a concert with her friends. That should be their main priority.
And they do it by all of them transforming to monsters. What the shit? This is not evil all of a sudden.
How is that evil? turning into red pandas to help pull Ming where she needs to be in order for her to go back to her human form in a ritual, because she was causing collateral damage and potentially harming May. That's evil.
What's the message this time? It's fine if all women are sluts because they are perfect the way they are. What about the mother?
This motherfucker can't get his mind off of sex. He just can't. Whenever he sees a red panda anywhere at all, he'll get a massive erection. He'll read some shit somewhere about the movie about how the red panda from turning red is an allegory towards puberty, and then he will extrapolate it and post-talk justify his little incident by saying that whenever you see anyone turn into a red panda, it's actually because they are behaving like sluts and they are here to put you on lock and keep chastity and probe you with a double-headed dragon. What a wonderful way to analyze a movie.
The day saved when the heroine distracts her mother by twerking in front of her and saying stuff like, "I'm not listening to you, I can shake my underage ass all I want, in front of children, for money." What a wonderful message.
Again, disingenuously trying to find the core message in all the wrong places. I'm not going to explain to you the message again, because I believe most of the people that are watching are not constantly fucking obsessed with pedophilia, so I'll leave the anime snob to actually look up the core message of the movie when his head is finally out of his own ass for once.
You don't have to work hard and become better, because it's perfectly fine to do such things at the age of 13, since this way you save the city.
Yes, because they are trying to get Ming to go back to her human form. She's doing it for a purpose. There are no messages and morals in that scene. The movie isn't telling young teenage girls to twerk in front of children for money so that they'll save their city. What the fuck kind of analysis is this? Do you honestly believe that's what's happening? And the movie is telling viewers not to work hard. Where the hell did that come from? What the hell does the concept of hard work have anything to do with that scene? You see, nothing you've said about that scene made any sense. You're just piling up a bunch of words into a sentence, and that's only when you're not purposefully finding something in the movie that made you have a groinal response.
And then comes the epilogue where nobody gets punished for all the damage they caused. They don't have to pay for the buildings they destroyed or all the people they psychologically scarred for a lifetime. Not even the boy band is suing them for ruining their tour. Imagine all the millions of people who paid for an expensive ticket and waited for months so their favorite singers can come to the city, and now it's not going to happen. Where is the fanboy outrage? Nowhere! Everyone is happy! The city's back to normal with magic money! No one is freaked out by a family of fairy Godzillas, and the heroine is allowed to run around in a hybrid form that makes her look like a monster girl waifu.
Monster girl waifu? No, 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 no. You know, I never thought I would say this, but this video is awakening my 2016 chakras deep within me. I'm tempting on reviving this old meme. Are you ready?
It's time to stop! It's time to stop, okay? No more! Where the fuck are your parents? Who are your parents? I'm gonna call Child Protective Services. It's time to stop!
ThatAnimeSnob. No, there is no monster girl waifu, especially when we are talking about May. Speaking of May, May was using her red panda form to attract more customers to her mother's restaurant. Sure, Ming caused millions of dollars of collateral damage, but it caused the entire family to become the talk of the town. Everyone will know about them turning into red pandas and their restaurant will receive much more notoriety from that little accident. They'll accumulate money they've gained from that incident alone and also from May's transformation, and they'll use it to pay off the debt. You keep peddling this notion that the red panda is inherently sexual, and that the main characters should pay for the destruction that they've caused, and you couldn't put two and two together. May made tons of money from turning into a giant red panda for her concert tickets, and you couldn't have guessed that May would have done the same thing to pay for the destruction. Huh?
Since the message is, women are perfect the way they are. They don't have to change by removing a curse that was making them whores, who destroyed the whole city, as well as the dreams and hopes of millions of fans around the world, since they are fine no matter what they do. It's the rest of the world who has a problem if they don't accept that.
I'm going to take my Seroquel medication.
Especially the men, and that was Turning Red, from Anger, a very educational movie for children that teaches them how whoring yourself makes your life easy, and you will be famous. Plus you will learn why men are useless idiots and why they must all identify as women or fairies if they want to get somewhere in life. Thanks, Pixar. What would we do without your movies for which nobody cares about anymore?
You heard it here, folks. Turning Red is trying to turn men into women in thrice. What a wonderful and happy way to end the video. Just rub one out with an absolutely bonkers conspiracy theory about how the kids are out to turn the goyim into gay for trans femmes. Totally not a product of absolute lunacy and a potential externalization of having some aspect of your personality that you're not too proud of. Anyway, the video is over. So everyone, now that this Clockwork Orange torture session is over, what have we learned today? We learned that having a red panda in the movie inherently makes it a pedophile bondage Ottomagic on BDSM for a Futanari monster girl movie, and it is hell-bent on turning men into red panda women with 300-mile-long cocks. It also teaches young girls to go up to random strangers, turn into puffy-looking anthropomorphic red pandas, and give some of the swellest happy endings a pedophile could ever ask for, and go around the city trashing buildings and not have to worry about paying fees to help replenish the damage that was done, and you will do all of it to become famous and accumulate tons of money. What, you actually thought that this movie was just about being yourself? Get out of here, you fucking lib. Clearly you are not nearly as well versed enough to understand the socio-economic intricacies that this movie possesses. In a serious note, videos like the one I've just shown you is a perfect example of just how fucking insane these Turning Red reviews are. I know I've mentioned this in the community tab on my YouTube page, but this still needs to be said here. I've never seen another Disney movie, or any movie for that matter, that has left so many people to leave such absolutely bombastic takes. Mr. Ender was far and away from being the only person to make a bombastically idiotic take in the movie. There have been many people putting their insanity in display and deliver us some of the most insane takes I have ever seen in my life. I'm serious. Go on an IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes page in Turning Red, and you'll travel to a place where all sense of reality goes to die. Funnily enough, I'm not the only person who is noticing this. A YouTuber known as ZeronJ made a video in the topic as well. Go check that one out. Turning Red has seemingly pushed all of the right buttons for all of these Looney Tunes characters with shady things in their pasts to come crawling out of the woodworks and leave us their batshit DMT crackpot conspiracy shenanigans on display, and this video here is no exception. As ridiculous as this review was in terms of how obvious it is that the reviewer is struggling with something, Turning Red being a pedophile movie with an implicit goal of turning little girls into hedonistic sluts giving head to pedophiles that are so fucking fat that they haven't seen their dicks since the Reagan administration is probably the tip of the iceberg in terms of the sheer lunacy these Turning Red reviews have, and it's probably going to get far worse from here. Turning Red has done something that no other movie of its kind has ever done, and that'll open the door for a couple of thousand people to leave us with some of the most cursed takes you'll ever see in your life. The movie has given them the means to do it. Because of the movie, it has opened Pandora's box for these types of people, and they are going to stick around and make the reviewing industry quite the interesting experience for the next 20 years, and to that I say, enjoy the show. George Carlin said it best when he said this: if you are born, you get a ticket to the freak show. If you are reading or watching reviews of the 2022 Pixar movie Turning Red, you get a front row seat. Anyway, that's all I needed to say about the video. There isn't that much to say for final thoughts, so I will just leave it at that. Thank you so much for reaching till the end. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you dox my home address. See you next time.